guys, welcome back for another episode of Uncut Gems with Slim. I'm super excited because on today's episode we are having another special guest, my very good friend, Miss LaShay Price. What's up, girl? Super excited to have her on the podcast. This is part of our Forces Female series, so we're talking about women in business. So I'm gonna let LaShay reintroduce herself to you guys if y'all haven't seen our previous episode together. If you haven't, make sure you watch it, but introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I am LaShay. I am a branding photographer here in Columbia, South Carolina. I am also a creative studio space owner here in Columbia as well. I have been on this journey of entrepreneurship for about 8 years now and full-time as of July 2020. So it's been a journey. Along the way, I met Slim, and here we are.
LaShay is a jack of all trades, and I thought who better to come on and speak about women in business besides someone who's had experience in the corporate sector as well as an entrepreneur, a female Black-owned entrepreneur, you know what I'm saying? So super excited to have her here today to kind of share, like I said, those different tips and tricks about being a woman in business, more specifically a Black woman in business. So to start off, I kind of wanted to talk about a few different things. And one of them was just about like what's some red flags in business as a woman that you can kind of like point out when you're doing business with people, whether that be men, whether it be corporations, whether it be anything, like different red flags that make your little alarm go off like, wait a minute, don't try to play me. Because you know, as y'all know, if you're a woman and you go like to get your car fixed or something, they be upselling you on everything. Call your daddy, call your boyfriend, call your husband, call somebody first, because they will try to play you because you're a woman. So I want to know what's some red flags in business that you feel like you kind of have come across and tips and tricks to like notice them.
So some of the things I can say is, as a woman, corporate America, I've seen where, and even as being an African American, we can get lowball a lot with our salaries. Holding different positions in corporate America, and looking at, you know, even most recently before I transition out, my white counterpart, her salary was, you know, way more than mine, but we carried the same title. I had more experience. So some of those red flags are different people trying to lowball you, trying to discredit your education, your experiences. Like you said, when it comes to getting your car fixed, there are people that will try to, you know, bump the price up because they feel like we don't know any better. And another one I would say, when it comes down, especially to the entrepreneurship side of what I do, being a small business and negotiating different contracts with different companies, different small businesses, different solo entrepreneurs, that negotiating side as a female, sometimes the opportunities fall where you're lowball. A lot. Sometimes you have different vendors that want to pay you less. They will cross you and want to negotiate the different terms of the contracts only because you are a female. You're seeing more female photographers in the industry, but you do see a lot of male photographers as well. And especially with being in my field as a branding photographer, I have a lot of clients that want to negotiate prices with me because I am a female, and also because of how they view their view on what exactly photography looks like. Photography looks different being a branding photographer. It's not about your traditional portraits per se that you would have taken. So that would be one red flag, is people wanting to negotiate your product or your service.
I feel like people do that too when you're a new business.
Yes.
And that kind of leads into my second question, which was how to stand firm and stand your ground when it comes to like negotiating your rates and things like that. Because I know, like, as an influencer myself, starting off, like, not going from receiving free product and doing content in exchange, I don't care how small you are, product is not payment. You cannot pay your bills in product, so you cannot pay me in product. But as you like start off, you kind of don't, when you don't know, then you just get what you can get. And I want us to kind of become a little bit more aware about knowing that you're worth more than in exchange for product or whatever. Because I know a lot of times you'll start off, I remember my cousin, she started off doing nails and she used to do $15 full sets. $15
and that's okay though, like starting out, because we do have to start somewhere. So like I feel like as we evolve in our businesses, in the beginning when we were trying to build our portfolios, when we're trying to establish our clientele, it's okay to have low prices, maybe to do some things at a lower rate, but then it's also not something that you want to do.
Don't get stuck there.
Because when you get stuck there, you also set the tone of how people perceive your business. So we think just because we're setting a low price that it's going to bring in more clients to us, or it's going to bring about more opportunities. And where that may be the case, is also increasing your workload. And then it's also setting the standard that you are basically a low budgeted brand. You are willing to take low. So like you said, charging what you're worth is definitely important.
Yeah, and I feel like with my cousin, for me, I felt like, I was like, oh my gosh, she do $15. But when you're good and you know, like, what you do is really good, like, you can't stay there. Like LaShay said, it's okay to start off small or whatever, just to kind of get your name out there and things like that. But you don't want to be doing so good and then you're known as like, yeah, she the $15 set girl. And then when your clientele increase, she's getting celebrity clients and things like that, and it's like $100 for a set. Now you looking like beyoutiful because you done started your brand and kind of had that low budget attached to you. So you kind of want to just make sure you're doing your research. That's very important for kind of guessing where your pricing should be, but also like asking questions. So if you do have other influencer friends or other friends who are in your sector or do what you do, other branded photographers, kind of peeping what their rate package looks like, peeping what your non-black counterparts or male counterparts, like what their rates look like, or if there's I don't know if they be sharing salaries and stuff, but if you have that information, you can kind of use that to know whether you're being lowballed or not.
And also accepting that the price is the price. So when you look at it from a corporate or a entrepreneur side, is the price is the price. And knowing that, you know, you have the ability to negotiate and flex your price as long as you're coming out with the better end of the deal. You should never negotiate or lower your price for the sake of your account, your potential client. You want to make sure that if you lower the price, that you are able to drive that deal, but making sure that it's something that's still beneficial for you. Never discount your prices when it's going to not be profitable on your end. And then when you look at it from a corporate America standpoint, when it comes down to like negotiating your salary, never lowball yourself. Like, I know that sometimes companies will give you a base salary, but 9 times out of 10, that base salary is base. Like, it is legit, like on the bottom total pole. Like it's the bottom. So they have wiggle room to like move up. So when you're negotiating, like
I always say, go a little high. Don't go crazy, but like go a little high, because you can always negotiate down. And one of my good influencer friends actually told me that. She was like, yeah, girl, like when you're giving out rates or whatever, you always want to go a little bit higher and then negotiate down to your real goal price. Because if you say, I want $500 for this, and you propose it to the brand like, yeah, it's $500 for this, they're going to negotiate you down. And then you're going to wind up settling with $400, $450, something like that. When if you would have went $600, you have $100 of wiggle room to negotiate down to the actual rate that you want. So I feel like you can always negotiate up. And at the end of the day, it's kind of up to you to judge. If you really need the little chump change, it's okay for you to accept something and be like, oh, like, yeah, I'll do that for X amount of money, even though you know it's lowballed. In them moments, it's just like you deciding, like, I just want a little something, so I'm gonna do it for this low price. But, you know, when it comes to the real deal, being okay with the brand saying, oh, we don't have that in our budget, and you're okay walking away from the deal.
And it's okay to walk away from a deal. Earlier this, recently I had a situation that arose. I had a client that reached out to me. They had a project and they didn't have the budget due to COVID. And in that instance, like, if we're going to be very realistic, a lot of small businesses are suffering and they have taken so many losses due to COVID. But when it comes to them wanting to, like, want you to perform package service B at a package A pricing,
right?
Like, realistically, that's not fair to me and my business. If you're wanting, like, high level services on a lower budget,
I think that's definitely a red flag, especially with brands. If a brand ever comes to you and they're like, we want 3 YouTube videos, 4 Instagram posts, and it's just a whole lot of content they're asking you to do. And then when you go to give them their, first of all, don't ever accept that many unless it's like spread out over a decent amount of time. But if they're coming at you with all these deliverables they're asking for, I just automatically, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not available to do this, and this. I'm available for 1 YouTube video, or I'm available for 1 Instagram photo, and this is my rate for that. But if they're coming at you with a whole bunch, they asking you for a whole lot, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to want to pay for all that they're asking for. So that's kind of a red flag for me. And like you said, if they're like, yeah, so we are interested in all this stuff and the budget is $500, but they're asking you for realistically $10,000 worth of work, like, no. And then, or another red flag, one is big for me, is when they have celebrity like ambassadors or celebrity clients. So you over here, you saying you can't pay me,
but you can pay
$1,000 for a photo post, but you can pay. I know you didn't tell I know you didn't tell Megan Thee Stallion that if you promote my hair products, I'll cut you a check for $500. I know you're not doing that for her. So if you got a celebrity budget, client budget, you got enough money to pay me my rates. So that's another kind of red flag for me as far as influencer world, and probably for you too.
Same.
If you have branding clients who, like, they can pay all this money for celebrities or politicians or whatever, but then when it comes to you, they like, oh, I only have $500 and I need you to rebrand my entire.
And that's kind of like how the situation was. It was a client that I'm assuming, like, had a contract with, like, a local city agency, and they were basically looking to, like, make this particular city the city life look well, whether that's restaurants, dining, that whole thing. And you, unfortunately, like, you cannot get a 6-hour project at a 2-hour budget.
Correct.
So just knowing, like, you have the ability to set the terms for not even just being an entrepreneur, being an influencer, but in your day-to-day, like, careers, if you're still working in corporate America, like, just knowing, like, you don't have to settle for people not being willing to pay your prices. Knowing that there's one girl, I can't remember her name, but she says the price is the price. And you can set the terms if you're willing to negotiate the price. Don't let them tell you what they want to give you.
Right.
You tell them what you want to give them, and you have to be okay with it.
Because at the end of the day, they came to you for a service, so obviously there's something that you have that they want, or they want you to work with you because they value the content that you create, or the branding photography that you do, or the services that you provide. So that's one thing to, like, always pay attention to. They came to you for a reason, and if they really want to work with you, they'll negotiate with you. I know every time, like, if a brand comes at me and, like, the rate is super low and then I give them my rate, automatically I know whether they really want to work with me or not. If they say, oh, I'm sorry, that's out of our budget, maybe next time, versus being open to negotiate or saying, well, this is kind of what our budget looks like. Is there anything that you offer that aligns with that? And that's how you can know whether a brand is really interested in working with you or whether they're just trying to kind of get over on you. So,
yeah.
Good stuff.
That's it.
And then last but not least, we kind of covered it already, was just kind of like boundaries for yourself or your brand to know that you're not settling for less. So how do you, whether it be like when you're negotiating, you're like, okay, at the end of the day, like I said, if you go high, like you're only going to negotiate down 10%, and that's like your boundary, your low, that's your floor.
That's your floor.
That's your floor. That's like your low boundary that you set for like making sure that you're not settling for less. So are there any like things that you specifically do to make sure like, okay, at the end of the day, like I might do this, but I ain't doing it?
I think always keeping in, being mindful of your time. Like time is money.
Period.
Like, I don't care like how you feel like, oh, it's easy, it's simple, I can do this with a blink of an eye. Time is money. And so if time equals money, when you are, you know, people want to negotiate things, always like think that thing through. Like,
oh, I got something brewing in my
think that thing through, y'all. Don't just sign up and say, okay, like, oh, you can just give me XYZ. No, time is money. And so with time being money, like, get paid for your time. Like, sit and evaluate. It's nothing wrong with negotiating prices, but just make sure that you're not lowballing yourself. If you want to give 20% off, 30% off, okay. Am I like lowballing myself to the point where I'm going to be doing way more work? And then too, sometimes, and this is why it's good to set your prices to where your prices can allow you to give a 20% off where you're still getting your base price. So I would definitely say just make sure that you do some type of analysis. Like if I give these people 20% off, like am I going to get like the low ball? Are they going to get a high quality end product? And then I'm going to be sitting back here when all my friends are going out. Yeah, stressing, pulling my hair out. Like my family's going out and, you know, they want to have movie night and I'm sitting here trying to crunch this project out that I didn't fully get paid for what it was worth. So that would be my suggestions. Definitely do some type of like check and balance, like fully understanding the full scope of a project to where it's not going to end up to where you're doing way more than what you got paid for.
And man, my last thing, you said the price is the price, but also what you negotiate is what you negotiate. And I say that because it reminded me of a time that I was working with a brand and like after we negotiated, I was going to do this, this, and this. And it came down to like right before it was time for the content to go live. They were like, hey, do you mind throwing in another slide and making it a carousel post? Or hey, do you mind throwing in an Instagram story? Like you don't have to create any content for it, like we'll provide a graphic for you, yada yada yada. And it was just not sounding right with me in my spirit because I was like, you know, what we negotiated is what we negotiated. Like we did not, you trying to throw in these little things. And yes, they even said, they were like, it's just another Instagram story post, like we'll provide it for you, all you have to do is post it. But at the end of the day, like it seems like something so little, but it's like you negotiated what you negotiated.
Because people will try to milk the system, though, and that's the thing. Like sometimes, even though they pay you what you kind of wanted, they still wanted more from you. Right. And there are unfortunately people that are out here that will try to like milk the system.
They'll try to sneak a few little things in there, and although like at face value, yes, it literally just took me hitting a button to do it, and it didn't take no effort on my part to do it. It was about the principle that we negotiated what we negotiate, because at the end of the day, they weren't saying, oh hey, we'll pay you X amount of money for adding this in. No, it's just like, oh, like it's just, can you just throw that in? And no, we can't, because what we negotiated is what we negotiated. And then always being open. If someone does do that, say, well, hey, this is my rate for including this, or sorry, we didn't originally negotiate that, but if you're interested in XYZ, this is the rate for it. 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh, it's okay, we're fine. But if they actually really want it, then they'll be open to negotiating again, renegotiating to get the price as the price.
And standing firm on your contracts. Standing firm
read
them. Please read first. Standing
before
firm.
you sign, read it.
Because, I mean, and it's important. And, you know, for me, as a business owner, all of my clients sign contracts. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, you know, you get a little where people want you to do things
on both ends, though.
Yes,
because you as the employer, right? Mm-hmm. Employer, yes. Yeah. And me as an independent contractor per se, like for me, when I have contracts, I've done a lot of contracts in the beginning had like lifetime usage, global usage, yada yada yada, and as a new person, I didn't know what all that means. So I'm like, I'm going to sign it because the rate is there and da-da-da-da-da. Now I have brands who can use my content for the rest of my life. No matter how big I get, if I'm like 1 million strong on Instagram and YouTube or something like that, like they can still use my content. Like I still endorse their products because that was the contract that I signed. So that's something I had to be aware of. And I know you've probably had experiences where your clients don't read, or there's been stuff that you didn't think you needed to add, but a client showed you like, oh, there's something else that could be added.
But it goes to show that like with each contract and each project that you negotiate, just always being mindful of how that looks, and just being okay with like the terms. Like it's one of the like hardest things for me has been, like you said, okay, yeah, it's easy to give you one extra picture, but that's not what we negotiated. And like I catch myself a lot, you know, Jabari, my husband, always tells me, well, will it really take you that much time to give them, you know, like something, that little bit of what they want? And the reality of it is no, like it won't, but these are the terms.
It'll add up too.
Yeah, and you have to like set the standard for your brand. If you get in a space to where like you're like wiggle rooming, like you're allowing people to like
it's gonna be a mess.
It's gonna be a mess, and people will continue to. So at some point, you do have to like stand firm on the terms and the conditions of different contracts. So
right, and kind of I want to say like a visual example of kind of what she's talking about is here you can book rentals, and if you book from 8 to 10, that don't mean 7:45 to 10:30. You know what I'm saying? And that's just an example of like giving wiggle room, because if she's like, oh yeah, it's okay if you come a little bit early, oh yeah, it's okay if you stay a little bit late, then when you have other bookings coming in, they're overlapping, and then it just becomes a whole mess. So that's kind of like a visual for my visual people, an example of kind of what that looks like when you just keep, if you keep adding, yeah, I could do another photo post, or yeah, I could do another photo for you, and da-da-da-da-da, it's going to keep adding up.
Yes.
And then at some point, you're going to be like, I'm sick and tired of it. And then you're going to have to be like, okay, I see why people say you need to be firm with what you negotiate is what you negotiate, and the price is the price. Yes,
and knowing, too, that every client, if they're not willing to like come to your baseline with prices, like really knowing that it's okay. Like we should all have our ideal consumers in mind with everything that we do. So like really knowing like, okay, if they're not able to raise the bar to like where I want my prices to be, like not beating yourself up because that deal didn't go through.
Right.
The price, with the price being the price, just knowing that every client is not our ideal client.
Right.
That is something that I would encourage everybody. Like really, like when you go into business, you should know who your ideal clients are. Right. Who are the ideal brands that you want to work with. And the ideal clients and the ideal brands that you want to work with, they won't put you in a position to where you're having to like negotiate your prices, or they won't put you in a position to where, you know, you're having to like worry about if, you know, they're going to lowball me, or if there's like different red flags or things that you need to look for, or they're going to cross boundaries.
Right.
Your legit clients and your legit brands that are serious about investing in you as an influencer or as a potential business owner, like they are going to pay fully for what, the services and the content that you're going to provide for them.
Right. So know your target audience, because another visual, if I walk into Louis Vuitton, they not about to negotiate with me so I can get a handbag for $25. They not going to do it. But, if Gucci Mane or somebody come up in there, they already know, like, that's my target audience. That's my target client. He got the coin. Da-da-da. They not about to negotiate with me. They going to just be like, okay, sweetie, have a good day. And you have to kind of be okay with that because some people will come to you and they're trying to, like, give you a great value coin, but they want in Louis Vuitton merchandise. So you got to make sure you, like, pick and choose, like, okay, I see that you are not my ideal client, and that's okay. And don't, like, negotiate down to be like, oh, you can get this Louis Vuitton pen for $190, and that still ain't good enough. Child, let them go. Let the great value go, and stick with your Louis Vuitton certified guest. So, anything else you got for us?
That is it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. Thank you again for coming on the show today. Will you share your socials and where the people can find you? They can book memberships, all the above.
Absolutely. So if you follow me on Instagram, I am LaShay Price. God, I have a lot of handles. So my personal page is LaShay Price, and then my photography page is LaShay Price Photography. And then if you're interested in studio rentals or bookings, it's the CS Columbia.
So if you want to book at the studio, it's the CS Columbia on Instagram. And I'll put all of LaShay's information in the show notes and in the description box. Make sure you guys leave us a comment. Let us know how you're enjoying the Forces Female series. I love y'all so very much. Thank you again for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yes, and until next week. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and feel free to connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Slim Reshae. That's SlimReshae. Links will be listed in the show notes, and until next time, love yourself and be beautiful.